Did we just see the most league-altering Super Bowl ever? Here are the 10 biggest takeaways from Super Bowl 59. The biggest takeaway, every team in the AFC should be targeting Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, or Micah Parsons via trade. Or should be trying to draft the best defensive lineman available in next year's draft. Because clearly, the formula to beating the Chiefs, if you're an AFC team that's trying to go to the Super Bowl, is to have one of the greatest D-lines of all time. It disrupts the entire offense when you can get home with 4 pass rushers, as much as the Eagles did against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Even my Chargers kind of tried to do this because in 2021, the Bolts beat the Chiefs with Brandon Staley's defense. You're probably wondering how. It's one of the few games the Chargers had a fully healthy Joey Bosa and a fully healthy Khalil Mack going for Mahomes. Mahomes' kryptonite is getting home with 4 pass rushers and being able to drop back into coverage. Then it also helps when clearly the Chiefs' game plan was to not run the ball at all in this game. Again, I go back to that Jalen Carter point, man. What that guy does for this Philly defense, it's like what Chris Jones does for the Chiefs. It's insanely impressive, and I hope the Chargers mimic that strategy. And all the teams in the AFC, the Ravens, Bills, Bengals, they could do it. If you think you got enough defensive linemen, it's not enough. Takeaway number 2 is that Patrick Mahomes now cannot pass Tom Brady. I guess reasonably, if Patrick Mahomes wins 8 to 10 Super Bowls, maybe you could make the argument that he's the greatest ever. But to me, it took getting this three-peat to cancel out what already happened. Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs once, took a ring off of Mahomes' plate there, and beat Patty in the actual Super Bowl when Patrick Mahomes was in his prime and Tom Brady was 43. Tom Brady had multiple primes at this point and absolutely wiped the floor with that Chiefs team in a very similar game where the Buccaneers D-line feasted on the Chiefs weak O-line that year. Just to pass the GOAT, to pass Tom Brady, you have to do something that is actually impossible. That was the three-peat to me. And then also, while the Chiefs Kingdom has been one of the shiniest trophies on the top of the NFL mountain, if you look throughout history, and now you add on this blowout loss, Mahomes is the all-time leader in the Super Bowl in most fumbles. Mahomes is now second all-time in interceptions and has thrown as many interceptions as Tom Brady did in his 10 Super Bowls in half the amount of games. And he's gonna pass John Elway if he makes any more Super Bowls, probably. The Chiefs have now been blown out in the Super Bowl 3 times. Like I said, this last weekend against Tom Brady's Bucks, and then back in Super Bowl 1 when Vince Lombardi's Packers beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 35-10. Now, the Packers went back-to-back. Vince Lombardi had a whole legacy before the league merged and became what it became. Before that first Super Bowl, Vince Lombardi already had a Hall of Fame coaching career. And Vince Lombardi tragically and unfortunately passed away very young at a time that he could have continued coaching. All these things contribute towards the naming of the trophy. But if the Chiefs don't get blown out in Super Bowl 1, if Lenny Dawson ends up winning that game instead of Bart Starr, is the trophy named after Vince Lombardi? You could draw a direct connection to the Chiefs getting blown out to the name of the trophy. I don't know how I just barely put that together as a Chiefs hater. Third takeaway, Jalen Hurts is firmly a top 10 quarterback. Even if he's your 10th best quarterback, you cannot tell me he is outside the top 10. He has outplayed Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls now. Hurts, in 2 Super Bowls, has combined for 650 yards passing and rushing and 7 total touchdowns. Talk about playing at your best when it's needed. And if he doesn't fumble on that one play, we're talking about one mistake away from beating Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs twice. Only in my greatest dreams. I'm not saying that we don't have to be honest with his weaknesses as a quarterback that we saw this year, but we also have to be honest when it comes to Jalen Hurts being one of the best decision makers in the league. He understands the throws that he cannot make. He understands his lack of arm strength compared to some of the other greats in the game right now, but he knows his greatest strengths. And Kellen Moore getting to Philly, they started using those strengths again, especially during this playoff run. I don't think the Eagles are finished. We're going to talk about that more. My fourth takeaway from this game, Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins need to retire. This has got to be a tough pill to swallow for two guys that are probably future Hall of Famers. But it's over, and this game showed it. When Patrick Mahomes was in trouble, in the past, he's had guys to get the ball to. Travis Kelce's been able to get open really quick. They've had guys like Tyreek Hill, good man-beating wide receivers that can get open off the line of scrimmage if Patrick Mahomes has pressure coming towards him and he's scrambling around and trying to find somebody. It's just gone. Even when Mahomes is extending plays 5, 7, 10 seconds, Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins can't get open? I'm happy about it. I did not want the Chiefs to win, but I think another 20-game season is only going to make that worse for both of these guys. And even if the Chiefs get all the way back to next year's Super Bowl, we may see the exact same thing happen versus the Lions or versus the Eagles again. If Kelce and D-Hop want to help the Chiefs turn this thing back around, if Kelce and D-Hop want Kansas City to have their best chances of winning the Super Bowl next year, the year after that, and the year after that, they need to open up the room in the offense for other guys to grow. Which brings me to my 5th takeaway from this game. I think this may be the only pro-Chiefs takeaway. Xavier Worthy is officially frightening. He had a historic Super Bowl game that will be forgotten about forever in a loss. But it really worries me when you get receivers at the caliber of Xavier Worthy that can burn prevent defense. The best prevent defense in the NFL right now. And he made it look easy. Twice. Everyone always compared Xavier Worthy to the Tyreek Hill pairing with Patrick Mahomes. The comparison is very natural. And I'm afraid next season, with Kelce either off the field or just less involved, D-Hop not even on the team, Xavier Worthy is going to be the wide receiver 1 with Rashee Rice at wide receiver 2. Thanks, Buffalo. That's twice now. They gave him Mahomes, and now they give them this. Like I said, everyone says the Tyreek Hill comparison, and I see it. But this is more like Deshaun Jackson. I'll talk about my other 5 takeaways from the Super Bowl. But first, comment your takeaways. I need to know what is your biggest takeaway in the comment section. I'll be responding to every single one of your takeaways. All right, number 6, the NFL is still rigged. Well, it's not necessarily rigged, but more so heavily influenced. Like, these refs are coached on how to call 50-50 close calls to a point that sometimes they mess up and they call a 70-30 close call the wrong way. They don't know how to judge if it's actually 50-50. Everyone around the internet, especially Chiefs fans, are now saying, what happened to the rigged talk? The Chiefs finally got blown out. If you don't remember, in the first drive of the game, we had a controversial call go against the Eagles. This could have been 50 points. It could have been 50. Clearly, they just ran into a legendary team on a legendary run. Like I said, I don't think the NFL is rigged, where the players are in on it. Roger Goodell can even perfectly set up the winner. But when you look at the Chiefs being 0-2 now in Super Bowls where their offensive line was called for 1 holding penalty, and they're 3-0 in Super Bowls where their offensive line was called 0 times for holding. How do you even get through an entire game with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback who runs around in circles without holding a single time? How do you get through a drive? The narrative is definitely still there, and I could even see the NFL starting to lean these type of things towards the Eagles now. While the Bills may be idiots for letting the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy and Patrick Mahomes, my 7th takeaway from this game, Howie Roseman is officially the best GM in football. Man, what the Kansas City Chiefs have done to build that dynasty is impressive. But just like with Andy Reid never qualifying for the Coach of the Year award, their GM's never going to qualify for the GM of the Year award, even though he's the one that got Patrick Mahomes, because they have Patrick Mahomes. And who's been the best in the league other than the Chiefs? It's got to be the Philadelphia Eagles and Howie Roseman. Who would have known that stacking talent on top of talent on top of talent would lead to you having an uber talented team? Which brings me to my 8th takeaway. The Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the NFL right now, and this is the greatest Eagles team in franchise history. And I think that they'll probably be back next year. The NFC is getting more and more competitive. I think the Lions will be in the picture. The 49ers will be in the picture. The Eagles are definitely going to be the favorites going into next year. You got teams like the Commanders coming up, the Vikings. But of all those teams, and if you throw in the Chiefs and the entire AFC, with how young this team is, with how much talent, like I said, Howie Roseman is stacked on the roster, I don't think Nick Sirianni's going anywhere. I think as of right now, the Eagles are the most likely team, the most likely franchise to be the next dynasty of the next decade of football. We will see what happens with Kellen Moore and his Saints job. I think that he is going to be the Saints head coach. The Eagles are only going to get better this offseason. You think Howie Roseman's going to stop with his whole philosophy now? Takeaway number 9 has to do with the halftime show. The fact that America has just gotten way too toxic. And I'm going to talk about this topic even though you know I never do. But first, you've been listening to the video this long, you're obviously an NFL fan. And guess what? I'm an NFL content creator that creates NFL content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and twice on Sundays. And then like the video. It's the free way that you can support all of my content. Again, comment your takeaways. Halftime show was not that controversial, y'all. The internet was just filled with conspiracy theories. There was nothing about the game on my feed. It was all about the halftime show. People saying it was trash. People saying it was good. People saying it was some kind of like conspiracy. People saying it was some kind of satanic ritual. People saying that it was some kind of protest. When really, it was just Kendrick dunking on Drake again. Social media is twisting and shaping everything into something, which I guess I contribute to that in the NFL niche, but it's a lot more lighthearted, a lot more fun when it's just like fantasizing and making shit up about football versus our actual day-to-day lives being affected and the level of toxicness and tension that people raise these topics to. Like I saw all over my feed, Taylor Swift was booed by the audience this time. That's all political, but Taylor Swift is a freaking pop star. Who cares about her political opinion? Travis Kelce, her boyfriend, is a conservative. And if you sit here and tell me because he's taking money in advertisements that he's not conservative, you are not very intelligent. And then I'm seeing all over the internet that Donald Trump was booed and that he was flipped off and all this stuff. But the real life footage has come out and he was cheered. And I'm not taking sides. I just want everyone to stop trying to pull each other different directions. We just had an election. And before you tell me to just shut up and talk ball, this affects me directly and all of my friends and family. I served in the U.S. Navy under Barack Obama, through the transition into Donald Trump, and then again at the tail end of my time in the service under Joe Biden. I exercise my freedom of speech every single day. I'm going to talk on this. And we just had an election. Everything's written down on paper, what the majority of Americans want. This is a democracy. That's how we make decisions. Decisions have already been made. And Kendrick knows that. He's not trying to get you ready for war. He's not going to lead your fight. He wasn't even protesting shit, honestly. You think he had the balls to say F you to the president, but he didn't have the balls to say ass? He bleeped out ass. Don't tell me that he has the balls to pull off some cryptic secret protest. I'm a Kendrick fan. I'm from Los Angeles. And to me, he should have played his greatest hits throughout his entire career, finished it off with that moment that everyone wanted about Drake, and it would have been beautiful. But to me, I feel like the whole thing, the whole cryptic message, the whole game over shit, it all was just to end the diss and beef with Drake, which obviously won him 5 Grammys almost by accident and became this giant thing. But this is probably the biggest moment of your life, at least the biggest stage you're gonna be on. Why not make the majority of the thing about Kendrick and Kendrick's career? I don't think it was awful like the haters. And I don't think it was great, like the people who are saying this is some kind of masterpiece. 5 out of 10 stars from me as a Kendrick fan. And then my 10th and final takeaway is that this will be the craziest offseason in NFL history. And I say that every year, and every year we somehow top the previous one. Because while we were watching the Super Bowl and all this was going down, Cooper Kupp is going to get traded from the Rams. 49ers began shopping Deebo Samuel. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets parted ways, which means Devontae Adams and the Jets are parting ways. The Cowboys are looking at trading Micah Parsons. I think these teams purposely dropped all this on Super Bowl weekend. And we're going to be covering it all offseason right here on the channel. So make sure that you're here for it all and subscribe before you forget. And then like the video. One last reminder. And what will happen in next year's Super Bowl? Will any teams build the monstrous D-line that I'm calling for? I guess sooner rather than later, the ball definitely won't lie.
Bill Flames, I went Mike on the mic. Yep. With something brand new, one time for your mind. He gave me fair warning. Now it's time to smack him in the mouth with that raw sports talk from the town. Sweet chin music to your favorite sportscaster.
Thank you, Philly. Thank you so much for finally ending it.